Hi, Herman.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Hello. I can indeed. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. Lovely. Um, is it possible to turn your volume up just a little bit?
Okay.
Oh, that's perfect. That's lovely.
Ah,
Yeah. So yeah, I'll get started with the questions if you're ready.
okay,
Okay.
sure.
Okay. Well, thank you, Herman, for wanting to speak to me about your time on Star Trek. It is very much appreciated. I wanted to ask you, just rewinding ever so slightly, well, a little bit further. Um, did you always want to work in the film industry, or how did that kind of come into your life?
Well, I wanted to be an actor, I guess, but I always had a good avocation for architecture and engineering. So I think I ended up exactly where I should have started. Uh, it, it, it's easy to look backward and see the things that you couldn't see looking forward and realize that the path you're on is the one you actually chose, whether you meant to or not.
Hmm. Was it right that you did go to drama school and you did sort of consider that for quite
I
some time, that path?
I think in directing, I wanted to be in the theater to begin with, and then uh, got interested in uh, motion pictures and television.
And were your parents supportive of that career? Was your dad quite
Oh, I had
present?
wonderful parents who didn't care what I did as long as I was a decent human being, and I had a lovely childhood. I was a lucky fellow. Uh, my parents didn't have a lot of money, but they had a great um, sense of who they were and who I could become, and they just let me do uh, within some boundaries what what choices I found would lead me to being a happy, adjusted fellow.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. What was it? Was it then? Was it? Do you find it quite easy to get into the business? I suppose it's much different into it these days.
I suppose you'd say I had a very lucky uh, life altogether. I, I've had a lot of um, people behind me, as all I think humans do. We don't do anything by ourselves. We do things, you know, in no particular order and in no particular um, technique or fashion. That river of life is just what takes you along. You make your choices, some of them better than others, most of them getting you somewhere.
So did you know other people in
I,
the?
my life has just been lucky from beginning to end. I
Yeah.
feel very fortunate to have had the opportunities and
Hmm.
couldn't be happier with it actually.
Oh, that's lovely. Did you know people already in the film business? Did they kind of help get you into the
Oh,
no?
no, I was from a small town, not really small, but small in terms of artistic expression. It was a town in the Middle West on the Mississippi River. I had a kind of a Huck Finn uh, adolescence. I wasn't absolutely perfect by any means. I ran away from home once. I canoed across the Mississippi and back. Uh, I I had my first car at 15. Um, I had my first accident probably at 16. It's just the normal thing that people in the Midwest grow up doing. I went to church, not of my own volition, but because my parents insisted, and spent a lot of time in the choir singing and doodling airplanes and submarines and things like that.
But you wanted to move to Los Angeles where the action was, and
Well, yes, but I got I took a test in high school and I got a really good mark on it, and the assistant principal asked me to come to his office, and I thought, oh God, what have I done? What have they caught me at? And he said, I see you did a really good essay, answered some really difficult questions. What are you going to do about it? I said, I don't know. He said, well, I think you should go to college. Well, my parents couldn't afford to put me through college. I certainly uh, had no work ethic at that time to justify it. And he said, well, let me see what I can do. And so on the basis of a SAT score, it was a high score. Um, he got me a half tuition scholarship to Northwestern University. And I had done a lot of acting in high school, doing plays, usually playing the lead. I thought I was pretty hot stuff at 15, 16 years old. And so I went to Northwestern after I graduated high school and worked my way through school, odd jobs. I worked in a hospital as an orderly, and I worked making hamburgers and uh, malts in the soda shop. Um, I did whatever I had to. I paid my half of the tuition and got through college. I did a lot of plays at Northwestern, but I wanted to get a graduate degree. I wanted to get a master's. And in order to do that, instead of working odd jobs, I wanted to work at the university, maybe getting an assistantship, which would pay my tuition as a graduate. The only one available was in technical theater, so I applied for that, and fortunately I got it. Turned out to be a happy accident because while a friend of mine said the drama's all on the other side of the scenery, I seem to have a penchant for creating the environments, for designing the scenery. And I did that right out of my master's. I started working at the Children's Theater of Evanston. Children's Theater is a very important, I think, maybe underappreciated bit of section of the art world. Children have great imaginations, and they need that stimulation that they get from both participating and being in the audience. I found children's theater to be very rewarding as a young adult. I used to watch the children come out of the woodwork, as it were, stand on the front steps of the school's auditorium and just see the kids, parents in hand, some of them older, siblings in hand, just pull themselves out of their normal environment into the theater and see something performed by their peers mostly, uh, enriching their lives in ways that just going to school and doing homework doesn't give you. And I found that not only rewarding for the children, but rewarding for me as well. I taught seventh grade kids mostly, as they were old enough to pick up a hammer and do something in building sets, and all that was good experience for them, good experience for me.
And I think Days of Our Lives was the first screen credit you had, wasn't it? I think that was your
Yeah, well, if you're going
first.
a long way past children's theater, yes, I went
Yeah.
to Reno, Nevada, as the entertainment manager of Harris Club in Reno, and I did that for about 3 years, saved some money, and then moved to Los Angeles, thinking still wanted to be an actor, but I found that I could get a job as an art director.
Was it a case of just applying for the role? Was it as simple as
Just
that back then?
the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
In 1965 was a period of expansion in television. NBC had just gone to color in 1964, I think. And well, they had maybe one color show a week, but they went to all color sometime between 64 and 65. And they had just come off of a big strike. And you know, you need to get into a union to get a good job in television. The unions were bereft of people that they could assign opportunities to interview for work, because everybody was working, everybody that had a union card. So I just kind of waltzed into NBC on the recommendation of a paint boss that I'd gone to see, thinking, well, I can paint scenery. And the guy said, you don't want to be a painter. He had looked at my sketches for stuff that I'd built for the children's theater. And he said, yeah, that's the kind of thing we do. And he said, you want to be an art director? So he said, there's a fellow at NBC that was looking for an assistant art director a couple of weeks ago. He maybe filled it, but maybe he hasn't. Why don't you give him a call? So I did. And he hadn't filled the job, and I did go for an interview, and they did hire me. And I was making, I think, $206 a week, which I thought was grand in 1965. That was like December, I think, 65. So you can fast track 40 years to March of 2005, exactly 40 years, when I did my last TV show, the Star Trek Enterprise video series. In that time, I worked everywhere in Los Angeles. Mostly, well, I went to Days of Our Lives as an assistant art director, and worked with a really wonderful art director who taught me a lot, named John Schrum. So together we did the original sets for Days of Our Lives. And 3 months into it as an assistant, John got another show that required him to be there full time. So the network just gave me the job of full art director after 3 months. Again, a very lucky accident. And I stayed there for about 2.5, 3 years. And later got offered a job on a 90-minute show with Steve Allen in another small studio in Hollywood. And that was freelance work. And I actually didn't go back to working for a studio, you know, like a contract player would. I actually never went back to it. I did freelance, even though I might work in this studio or that studio. It was always on a per production basis.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway, I did a lot of stuff. I went to uh, Paramount in 1980 doing The Powers of Matthew Starr, and that was to finish a season that hadn't quite finished the year before because the lead actor had an accident and they had to take some months off.
hmm.
Anyway, I stayed at Paramount doing situation comedies mostly for quite a while, and off and on doing movies of the week, freelance for other companies. And then I met Gene Roddenberry, and he asked me to do Star Trek: The Next Generation, 1986, I think. And that occupied me more or less uh, consistently for 18 years.
Yeah, yeah. So were you aware of the original Star Trek series? Had you watched that
Oh, yes. When
at
I
the
was at
time?
NBC, I would rush home. I think it was on Thursday nights and uh, and watch it. I thought it was a really uh, wonderful science fiction, but it was kind of hokey in the backgrounds. They were very uh, close to the best in those days. They didn't want to pay anybody to make grand sets. They just wanted to get something that worked, um, but the scripts were really good. Many of them, again, hokey by looking back at them, but they appealed in a humanistic way to a larger audience, I think, than the network realized. The history of that original series is pretty well documented. That the NBC gave up on the series after 72 shows or something like that, 2.5 years, and then it lay dormant for a while until it became syndicated. And in the syndication, it became so popular that the studio decided they might want to reinvent it, and they did.
Hmm.
I'm sorry?
When you're trying to talk to him there.
Yeah, it just started. Sorry, my wife wants to.
Oh, so do you want to talk to your wife a second or?
Yeah, hold on.
Yeah, yeah, no worries, no worries. Take your time. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. Of course, there have been several Star Trek movies by the time the Next Generation came about. So there wasn't a concern that the TV series would be the clunky old. There was going to be more money behind it, so you felt
oh,
confident
there's a
it
whole
would
lot.
work.
You know, I was kind of a favored son at Paramount, doing situation comedies, uh, providing environments for situation comedies, and um, they wanted me to interview with Gene Roddenberry, and the rumor around the lot was that it's just another attempt by Gene Roddenberry to recreate the original series, and the network just gave him that permission and put up the money for another series in order to get his authorization to do Star Trek 4, which is a motion picture that the studio had been anxious to do, but they always needed Gene's permission to use his ideas, his name, his invention of the Star Trek franchise. So I was reluctant even to go for the interview because I didn't want to be a part of a failed attempt at the series, and then I met Gene, and that made all the difference in the world. He's a charismatic guy, a good writer, a good thinker, a humanist philosopher that spoke to me particularly, and so I signed up.
Hmm.
They needed somebody to make it happen because they'd hired a couple of illustrators, good fellows, but they knew how to draw, but not how to make what they drew into feet and inches and paint and all the things that construction requires of a designer that can put what's on paper on the stage. So I was I was considered to be that guy, and it was again one of those lucky things that occur in my life that just turn out to be a really good thing.
So when it came to the design of the sets of the Enterprise, was that all kind of laid out for you, or could you input
Well,
on?
the bridge was Andy Probert's dream of a different kind of bridge. It didn't have the moving capacity that the original bridge did, which made the captain the center and had a lot of technology directly related in the circular floor plan. But it was new and it was different, and he had a good idea for the exterior of the ship as well. So my job at that point was to certainly create that bridge, which required a lot of engineering, because in order to do it on a stage, you had to put a blue screen or a green screen these days below the surface of the stage in order to show a picture on a screen that was that big. In later designs, I was able to convince the producers that such a big screen was unnecessarily complicated to shoot. Again, one of my claims to fame is to make sets that can be accessed by the camera rather than sets that are just pretty to look at. They have to be able to be taken apart and put back together quickly. Can't do that with some kinds of designers. They insist on their vision and double take the hindmost for what it takes for the production company to get the camera where the director wants it. Anyway, again.
And Rick Berman was the other producer. How did he and Gene Roddenberry get on at that point? Were you aware? Were you involved with Rick at all?
Oh yes, Rick Berman was a neophyte as well at that point, and uh, he and Gene got along fine. Whatever else you might have heard, Gene got along pretty much with everybody. Maybe the studio brass clashed with him once in a while, but the people who worked for Gene loved Gene. The writers um, were very close to Gene, and he used people from the original series to begin with, and then broadened his horizons. And Rick Berman helped in that way.
So he kind of helped sort of introduce new elements, and so Gene's very good at
Yeah, so he
yeah.
done a TV program called The Big Blue Marble, and he was well into a new kind of science fiction. But Gene brought a lot of new things, to Star Trek: The Next Generation. Excuse me. Uh, Gene brought data, particularly to the cast, and that made a huge difference in the interaction of all the players on the bridge. They had a humanoid to deal with, and Brent Spiner was magnificent. The part of a lifetime for him, of course. And Gene also invented the holodeck for the new series, and that way you could take the Enterprise crew just about anywhere in the universe at any time. And again, a brilliant idea that was fun to implement, actually. I mean, we did shows that took us to newspaper offices in the 1950s. We went to various planets without having to actually build the planet. We certainly used it very well in some of the motion pictures. Um, Going to a gangster's party in
First Contact.
yeah, we just had a lot of fun with it, and it was very easy to do. You just get a door that takes you to the holodeck, and all you do is take it to the back lot and open it up, and then you're in 20th century Paramount back lot, where you can go to an alley, you can go to a street, you can invent something that's more of today, and yet it's happening in 400 years in the future.
As you say, the holodeck had a great opportunity. It brought great opportunities to the show. In Generations, of course, opening with on the water, and there's lovely ships and costumes, and yeah, that's but that was that actually on the tank at Paramount, the ships in Generations, the old naval vessels, the wooden galleons.
Yes. I'm not sure I understand the question.
Well, you shot that on the Paramount lot, the beginning of Generations, where they are on the old Enterprise, wooden ships and everything. The big.
Oh yes, yes. Well,
yeah.
that whole, all the way back to the original series, the basic structure of the command is the English maritime You know, a captain, first mate, cook, all the people from the 18th century sailing vessels, their command structure became the command structure for the original Enterprise, and of course, it was carried over to all the motion pictures and television series. It works really well. But you know, it was originally a wagon train to the stars, as yeah, it's been well documented that Gene was replacing the sheriff with the captain, and the doctor with Bones McCoy, and other doctors. He's, you know, just translated into space what he had been doing, and many others have been doing in 1980s television, doing in space what he couldn't do with the sensors, writing stories about gender inequality and prejudice of one kind and another, and economic inequality, all those things that we are still battling with today, were in Gene's scripts, and continued to be, at least until he passed on, and then picked up by Rick Berman and Company.
Did you encounter DC Fontana? DC Fontana, the
I don't have much to do with the writers. You know, I got the scripts, and they'd already done their work. My advice and criticism always came directly from the producers, and inevitably from Gene. But again, I was very lucky that I got very little thou shalt not from them. More than likely it was, how much more can you give me?
Because you only did the first series of Next Generation. Was there a reason for that? Did you just want to do other things? Because you were on TNG for 1 year, wasn't it? Is that correct?
Oh, they asked me to do Star Trek V, and I agreed to do it, and but their caveat was I couldn't do the TV show and the motion picture at the same time. I guess they didn't trust me to do both, thinking one would get short shrift if I didn't give my entire attention to the motion picture. So I asked a friend of mine who had also done science fiction to take over the show while I did the movie. And when the movie was over, the studio said, "We'll keep you busy doing movies. You don't have to go back to TV." So I didn't ever ask Richard James to relinquish back to me the job that I'd offered him. And so he continued on and did the rest of the series. Meanwhile, I was out of work until they did another motion picture. It wasn't anybody's fault. The fellow that promised me all that work passed on, and couldn't blame him for that.
No.
Anyway, I worked off a lot of doing other things. I did a series with Robert Mitchum, and filled in until Rick Berman called me to look at a script for a new series called Deep Space Nine, and so I ended up doing that.
Yeah, Deep Space Nine, I think, is my favorite Star Trek series. It's so different, obviously confined to a space station. I think it's probably the most unique of the Star
I'm
Trek
glad you
series.
say that, yes. I think as a series, I still think fondly of that. I've spent 7 years doing it. And also, I was able to, by that time, have the studio trust me enough that they let me do both the film and the TV series. What they did was they let me supervise the TV series, hire somebody else to actually do the day-to-day work, but I was able to keep my hand in and still do the movies when they came out. So I ended up doing 6 films and the 3 television series. So that's kind of a career right there.
Absolutely, yes. And what was Star Trek V like? Was that quite because it didn't have the biggest budget of the films, was it a bit
Actually, a
difficult?
very good film. It didn't have a good ending. It they shot the ending twice, and the second ending was acceptable, but neither ending that the audience may have seen was what the ending was that was originally written.
That was the rock creatures, wasn't it? I think originally
Uh,
planned.
they
Or
weren't rock creatures in the original script. It was a gigantic production. They are out in the middle of the desert. The godlike entity they're talking to, uh, they just come to a hole in the ground. And the conversation gets more and more heated, and Kirk says, what does God need with a starship? And at that point, the God reveals himself with pillars of um, gigantic rocks, at the top of each of which is a black bat-like angel, and not just one, like 30 of them in a circle around our little band. And this is the fight they have to have with these dark angels flying in and out and eventually defeating. And as our band is fighting, Lawrence Luckenbiel's character grabs the god and dives into this well with him. That part was still in the picture, but all the things with the dark angels and the big fight between them, which would have been like comparable to a fight in space with 30 starships, you know. Anyway, the studio didn't want to pay for that. Studio took those pages and just ripped them out and said, come up with a new ending. And Star Trek V could have been one of the best. And because it wasn't funded in the end, it, it's an okay picture. I wouldn't say
it's still very,
it's awful, but
yeah, I think
it didn't meet the standard of say First Contact, which I think is probably the best
yeah.
of the pictures that I did.
Did you say there was 2 endings shot for Star Trek V?
Yeah, we shot a second ending that
Yeah.
allowed Spock to commandeer a bird of prey and make the demise of the rock creature that the god had become, uh, plausible
Yeah.
ending. And you know, the denouement, the little badinage at the end in the observation lounge is clever dialogue, and you know, once again we saved the universe, but it wasn't the picture as written.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it does happen, doesn't it? I think it's
the things that happen in the real world. You don't always get what you like. You have to deal with,
I think it is a picture that, yeah, I think it is a picture that fans do think of very fondly, and I think it's over the years people appreciate Star Trek V in a way it didn't before, particularly the character moments.
Idea. Who doesn't want to know?
Mm.
Who doesn't want to know why we have a God in every culture that's similar but not similar? But all those gods come up from the human desire to know what's next, if there is a next. And will I dream? Those things are.
Remember, we just had an earthquake.
We had an earthquake.
That's a bad one.
Oh, but what can I do about that? I did not.
Be okay?
My wife says we had an earthquake.
I suppose is that quite common where you are?
No, a large one is uncommon. Smaller quakes in the vicinity, in and around Los Angeles. I'd say they're rare.
Oh.
It rains a lot more in the Midwest.
Right. We'll keep going for now. But
California.
I was going to ask about what William Shatner was like as a director on Star Trek V. Was he very clear from what he wanted from you guys?
He was learning. He was learning,
Because he'd only done sort of TV at this point, directing TV episodes, so he's finding his feet. It sounded like, yeah.
He had a lot of help. The director of photography was a lot of help to him.
And how did you find Harve Bennett as a producer?
Sorry,
Harvey Bennett as a producer?
Oh, Harve Bennett, yeah. He was my friend. Yeah. You're going way back for me. That's all.
Yeah. Because
Harve was a good guy. Harve's a good guy. He's gone now. Last I talked to Harve, he was in a retirement home in no, I think it was in Coopersville, Oregon. Yeah.
And you always would reuse some of the sets from the Next Generation in the original series films. Is that just pure?
And that was my training. My friend John Shrum, going back to the days of our lives, had a tag that whenever a set came off of one of the big musical extravaganzas they did in the evenings at NBC in those days, he'd put his tag on it and it said "Hold" for John Shrum. And so he'd take anything that he could get in the way of a stock item and save it for a show that he needed, even though he didn't know what show it was. So they had a stock catalog at NBC that you could go to and look at all the things that John had held from other shows. And if you needed to make a set, you could find a fireplace, you could find windows, you could find a full kitchen, whatever it was required for your new script. You more than likely would find, if not the whole thing, some bits and pieces that you could put together and make something new out of it. And that was my training. So to take something old and make something new out of it was kind of the mantra for all of the Star Trek series and even for the motion pictures.
Well, it made sense because you knew you were coming back, strike the sets, pack them up, and then bring them out again, sort of thing. Star Trek VI is very highly regarded. Was The Undiscovered Country a good film to work on?
I like Star Trek 6. The each new motion picture required a different set. Many times a whole new bridge. Like in Star Trek 5, I had to make the same bridge work for a couple of ships, just with a few additions, and a new chair, for instance, for the captain. Star Trek 6 was we had to make the observation lounge into a little bit of a more important set. Because they had the dinner with the Klingons and it was a good show to do because it had a lot of Klingons construction to do. New Klingon interiors for their big ship where Gorkon is murdered.
So it was always fun to do an alien environment like that at a ship that was.
All of them are fun. All of them, and they're all different, and they're all difficult, especially in the TV series because they're always trying to put a new gimmick on the bridge, a new panel that has to be opened and something important done to it to save the day, and often you haven't anticipated that until it's written, and then you have to figure out how to find a place to put it and make it logical. We always managed. It was, I had a great group of people that I worked with for most of those 18 years. The Okudas, of course, Mike and Denise. Later on, John Eves. I had some really good illustrators. Worked on Deep Space Nine. I can go through a litany of people that supported this franchise over the years that they became family, really. I still talk to them when necessary.
Oh, good. One of the good things about Star Trek 6 is that it's not just the traditional desert locations that you would sort of see in some of the other films, but you were going to a nice world with the Klingon penal colony. Was it quite interesting to design the prison planet?
And of course we went to a glacier to film those big wide scenes that the prison planet was supposed to be. To represent that exterior of the prison planet. But the only real stage set that we had to create was on stage 14 as a kind of a bowl, so that all the snow was pretty much there wasn't much of a horizon outside of the bowl that the fight takes place. All of the walking scenes were done exterior in Alaska, and not with our major actors. They were all stand-ins that were in costume because nobody needed to send the seven dwarves all the way to Alaska to do those scenes. They were bundled up so tightly in clothing that you believed who they were when you saw it on the screen. The director of photography was very good at making the two environments, the manufactured one on stage and the real one in Alaska, meld together. And he did that by making it very windy, very windy on the stage set, so that the fact that it was foam snow and not real snow made it look good. And of course, we painted it in a way that it had the bluish cast that the Colony Glacier has.
And the interiors were of the prison planet. Of course, you had to redesign for enter.
Part of the picture
Mm.
in a canyon here, very close to the studio.
Mm.
And we started it at night, which was unfortunately for the actors, it was my idea. You start a picture at night in the cold, doesn't make everybody think this is going to be a fun trip. But in order to do that, to build that, I had to build sets that were 40 feet high to accommodate the existing half of the shell that was there, that was a real part of a mountain with a cave. And we had to elaborate both the cave interior and exterior, and start at night so that we didn't have to look up and see daylight and deal with daylight. We could use the Klieg lights and light the environment the way we wanted it to look, and not the way it would if we were in bright sunlight. So we started at night and started in that big set. And it was a lot of fun. The shapeshifter is I think one of the fun things. I also did something there. The elevator that they take down into the bowels of the planet. I used something like from a Max Sennett talkie out of the 1910s. I've made a roller, top and bottom roller with a what happened? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Yeah.
I lost the Zoom. Okay. I made this roller with a canvas, and it was vertical, two grips, well, with a crank rolling it, and that was the background for the rock wall going by behind our actors. And it was they even kept the sound of the roller, because it made a rumbling sound by virtue of how crude it was. And I love doing things like that. It's actually done in the camera. No, didn't need any projections.
Yeah, it's good old fashioned filmmaking. Yeah.
Wall of the rocks of the planet going by.
You had to recreate the prison mine for an episode of Enterprise. Was that did you approach it differently? Because of course you got a TV budget to recreate something that's on a big film.
I don't remember it exactly, but I was always able to commandeer things that I was able to build for the motion pictures and use them if I could, turn them upside down or use them sideways or repaint them, whatever worked. I was able to use things that we made on a larger budget for embellishing the smaller budget, and it went both ways. I used a lot of things from the TV show in the features when they were appropriate.
And because Gene Roddenberry wasn't really very involved with Undiscovered Country, he wasn't very well at that point. Did you know? Did you feel his absence?
Was not part of the original. I'm sorry, Gene had passed on by the time we were doing, I think, the
I,
the last the
I
last.
think he saw a rough cut, I think, of six. I think he saw, but he wasn't involved with it directly.
I mean, he had stopped being actively involved um, some months before he passed.
Hmm.
Mm.
So moving on to the next generation films with Generations, of course. So you've got the Enterprise meant for a TV series, and now it's on the big screen. Did you make much changes to the bridge or anything to make it more filmic when the film came along?
I'm not sure which. Uh,
What with Generations, the first TNG movie?
Generations is the most historically accurate script of the motion pictures because it brings in the man that invented the warp drive.
Hmm.
Zeph,
For First Contact, yes, yeah, yeah.
played beautifully by Jamie Oliver, who
Oh, who was it? Oh, it'll come to me in a minute, but yes. So was it quite? Because of course, then you've got to design a post-war Earth for First Contact. So was it interesting to design that kind of society? And because of course it's futuristic, but it's not as futuristic as the actual 24th century. Is it interesting designing different periods of the future, kind of thinking of what it's going to be like?
everything we saw about that Earth was the little encampment with the bar. The budget got stretched very thin on that particular part of the story, and I made good use of what was there. Well, actually, I should say the director made good use of what was there because I couldn't build a future that maybe J.J. Abrams would be able to afford to do
Yeah.
with as much as he gets these days. But yeah,
it was James Cromwell who played
it was always the the story that made the difference. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the shooting of that village and the attack, particularly that it gets. So we saw very little of the pretty part of that village, and we saw a lot of the destroyed part, and that was by design.
Hmm.
There's so many wonderful moments in that picture. The moment that Picard then is showing. I forget her name.
the character Lily.
Yes.
Yeah. The view of, yeah.
The view from the Enterprise and make her realize that she really was on a spaceship, and then to take away the phaser that she had gotten and let her know that she could have vaporized him. And then there's the moment in the bar when Troy is drunk on tequila, and she and Riker are having a conversation. And she said, "Well, I wanted to blend in," and he says, "You're blended all right." And those are moments that you have to see to believe. They ring true. They ring true. Like this could be the way it really happens.
Yeah.
And of course, Zephyr Cochrane, being a quasi-alcoholic and yet the inventor of the warp drive and the first man to travel at warp speed. This is all, and our engineer and our first mate are part of that historic moment. What's not to like about this script?
And of course, you have Jonathan Frakes directing, so somebody who knows inside out the characters. So that must help having Jonathan directing.
Yes, yes, yes.
And was it? Yeah.
Compromise is what is usually the mantra for the relationship between the director and the producer. In this case, between Rick Berman and Jonathan Frakes, who are, in addition to producer and director, good friends, long associates, and it was wonderful to be backstage. And hear Jonathan complain about the producer and the producer to complain about Jonathan.
And of course, the TNG cast got on so well. Unlike the original series, the TNG cast were very much like family. So it must have been quite a fun, it's really nice to be around the set and a nice atmosphere all the time.
Yes, yes, yes. And Brent Spiner, who is very droll off camera as well as being brilliantly robotic in on the set. He is, when the camera's not rolling, he makes everybody laugh. And is also good at that.
Yeah, yeah. You
keeps it light, keeps it interesting.
I thought it was quite impressive. When they go on the spacewalk and they have to fight the Borg on the dish. So you're designing it so it's upside down and
one stage to get that set, and then to get part of it to disassemble and fly off. It was rather seamlessly done. I think the post-production work on that was excellent.
of course,
seeing them walk upside down.
Yeah. And you've got Borgifying the Enterprise as well. When the Borg took over the ship, they're then assimilating the ship, so you're getting to turn it into. Would you have done that first? Would you have shot it as it was, then changed it, or would you were kind of going in between the two states?
No, I don't think so. I think we shot it all at one time.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that was all.
Yeah,
that
just
was
a
all
quick change here and
camera, except for when the wider shots were necessary, you went to straight CGI.
Yeah. Because I was wondering, yes, I was wondering whether, because when you've got to destroy a set, obviously you got to make sure you shoot everything before you set off the pyrotechnics. So you're quite careful with First Contact to do all the Borg scenes first, or before the Borg get on there. Is it because then is it difficult if you need to reshoot something to then put it back the way it was, or is it quite easy to change it back, if you know what I mean? You have to reshoot.
Yeah, we started out with the Borg in place.
Okay.
And
yeah,
I don't remember exactly. It wasn't that hard to change it, to add Borg things, for instance, to the beehive look, to the engine room. Yeah, we did shoot the engine room scenes before we modified it to include the Borg um, beehive.
Mhm.
Yeah, kind of hard to remember
Yeah.
exactly what way we did it because it's in the past.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
it was 25 years, 26, 27 years.
Because of course the Borg were very established in the TV show, so there's quite a dramatic redesign for the
Oh,
film.
we had a little more money than they had in the TV show, and the experience of having seen what the Borg uh, mantras were, what was needed for them. Uh, yeah, we're an outside company that did the Borg for the motion picture that then later the TV continued to use those things. And the things that I had built, the cages that that the Borg regenerated themselves in, uh, were saved and used in the TV show later.
Hmm. You mentioned on being on location. I was wondering what it was like scouting for Death Valley for Generations. Was it because of course there's gantries and things? Was that kind of bit
Just
hot
another
or
location in Southern California.
yeah?
Yeah, it's a
It, yeah.
the hardest thing about shooting Red Rock Canyon or any of the uh, desert locations is you got to be careful about the turtles.
About so what the
They're an endangered species.
oh right, yes, yeah.
That if it walks across the road, you've got to wait till it gets to the other side.
Ah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were pretty sure that the Field and Wildlife Game Commission representative would have a turtle in his trunk, put it out on the road, and then discover it and take it away again.
Mhm.
We had a lot of transportation problems because of that Endangered Species
Right.
Act.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's very fuzzy in my memory. I wouldn't include it in
Yeah.
in your
Yeah. Because I know Generations was the ending was reshot. They originally Kirk was killed in a far more simple way, and then it was redesigned with more gantries and things collapsing. So again, do you remember
Yeah, it was
change?
ignominious the way he was shot in the back in the first script, and the producers were right to rewrite the ending and do something more dramatic.
Hmm.
But it took a while. We had to build a bridge, and then the bridge had to be constructed in order to fall apart at the right moment, to be blown apart at the right moment, and all of that took some time. So we spent another um, 6 weeks probably between the finish of the first bit of shooting and the beginning of shooting the second ending. Uh, it again had financial implications that we had to address. The second ending, they didn't care what it cost because it had been so badly um, anticipated.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway, again, a happy accident it sent us what we call back to the Valley of Fire. John Eves, our illustrator, did a T-shirt for everybody on the crew. We had a drawing of the bridge and the rocket launcher, and it said "Back to the Valley of Fire."
Yeah. Oh, that's very nice. I must move on to probably my favorite Star Trek film, Star Trek Insurrection. Of course, very much shot on location, but was that and quite remote places as well. Was that sort of logistically difficult to get Baku village and set up and things like that?
That was done locally in Simi Valley man-made lake.
Mhm.
Yeah, we had the dubious pleasure of draining it and then filling it again. When we got there, it was a swamp, and we had to drain it in order to build some sets on it. And then we had to fill it again because it was a civic responsibility we had. Yeah, interesting that you would call it your favorite. Excuse me.
I think a lot of fans well, the fans will debate everything, won't they, until they're blue in the face. But I think I like the tone of the film. It's a bit like Star Trek 4. It's quite light. There's lots of humor and it's quite well a very big story as well. I know people might say it's not as big as First Contact, but it is quite a meaty subject to get
Yeah,
into.
there was a lot of criticism of why write a script about a planet that is represents eternal life, or some version of eternal life that can be shared, and why be so closed mind about it and making a philosophy that's anti Fountain of Youth. I mean, you want to give people hope. You don't want to shut the door in their face and say, "Nope, you're gonna die. That's it."
Yeah, I think we all have this.
The premise of the whole picture was in question. That doesn't mean the picture isn't a good picture. It's just that you don't want to think about it too deeply.
Oh yeah, I think most films you just want to enjoy it and then don't dissect it too much. But I think it was, of course, we all have this desire to be forever young and to live forever, and so it builds upon that desire. And of course, yes, you're right that there was enough to go round, but there's always been enough to go round in human history, and it's not worked out that way. So I think it is, if Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek was morality play set in space, just Insurrection is surely a prime example of that.
It's always here.
Yeah.
It's always the stories are always about us. They're always about humans, no matter how many alien entities are brought into the mix to tell the story. It's always a human problem to solve. It's always a human frailty to reinforce the attitude adjustment, replenishment, whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
To allow growth, you have to have conversation, and the conversation in these science fiction shows just takes you out of your ordinary day-to-day life, and that's fun, and it's interesting, can be educational. What's not to like?
Well, indeed. Did you encounter Michael Pillow a lot? Because of course he was, of course, on DS9 and wrote Insurrection. What was Michael Pillow like?
I did another project with Michael Piller that didn't go anywhere. He was ill, and it was a big surprise that he passed on at such a young age. Michael was instrumental in Deep Space Nine. They couldn't have done that without Michael, and he's such a gentle. He was the kind soul that you wish everyone that you meet could be.
I think that comes through in interaction in terms of the gentleness of the story at occasions, and also the morality of it. I think I would say that probably would echo the
Well, that was
the
the
man.
same philosophy that developed from that particular script, and we could all use a little Zen.
Yeah.
A smile is better than a frown.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think also Michael Westmore does a wonderful job with the sonar as well, with the stretching of the skin, and they're an interesting villain. Again, that's
Yes, yes, and yeah, an actor is a good actor when you could still see the humanity beneath a stretched countenance like that. Yeah. Murray Abraham was a fantastic actor, and you can still see the actor through the makeup. That's a tribute.
Would you have done much of the exterior ship designs? Would you have helped to design the Enterprise E, the sonar ships, or
By then, I think Peter Lortzen was pretty much in
did all
charge.
that?
Which ships were being done, and what, where to place them in the galaxy. The CGI had become so good that the making of models and the shooting of them, which I had a lot to do with in the first year of Next Generation, and in Deep Space Nine, the CGI became so much more believable, and could be done with a lot less time and energy and probably money, although I wasn't too involved with what it cost to do the CGI. It was just more practical as time marches on.
And I believe that Interaction also had ending was reshot as well, wasn't it? Because I think the ending was deemed as a bit too pedestrian, so they made it a bit more of a
Well, I was
actual,
surprised that I put a blue screen out there so they could make the galaxy make that see-through, and they chose just to shoot the blue the way it was. If I'd known that, I'd have chosen another color. But again, I'm sure it had to do with money. It had to do with money. I thought that should be a Starfield with the other ships in the vicinity in the background, at least at some point. It didn't have to be, you could do that with maybe three really thought out and produced cuts, and the rest of the time it could have just been a Starfield, but they didn't choose to do it.
That's interesting, because I always assumed it was intentional, but I suppose there's a lot of blue
was
in the
but it wasn't. That wasn't my idea
from
of
your
it.
point of view. Yeah, because there was a lot of blue in the sonar ship design, so I suppose it kind of made, from a color palette point of view, sense that it was blue, but again, it wasn't your was originally the
It made the set as big as it was. It made the set seem small,
yeah.
which the Starfield idea would have made it infinitely more believable. But then again, you're racing through the end scenes, and you're not thinking about the scenery. You're thinking about the drama.
Hmm. And am I correct that originally it was a horizontal, not vertical set originally? So they wanted to make it more multi, a bit more, give more sense of jeopardy, I suppose, by making it a vertical set, or is that not true? Was it always kind of that way?
I frankly don't remember the context. Yeah.
I just wanted to touch on DS9 for a little bit. So of course you got a lot of Emmy nominations for DS9. Trials and Tribulations, the nice little homage to the original Tribbles. Was that a fun show to do?
Oh, it's always fun to recreate things. We recreated the original bridge. We recreated uh, a set for like I think it was a cafeteria or some kind of yeah. I don't remember what it was exactly from the original show. Interesting thing about that, I had been doing one of the features, and I came back to the TV set, the TV script, and it called to the original bridge, and Randy McElvain, the art director, who'd been subbing for me while I was doing the picture, had found an old drawing of the set and the original floor plan for the Enterprise, and it was at the wrong scale. He was scaling everything off as if it were a 1/4 inch scale, and it actually was an 1/8 inch scale. So everything was, he was planning to do everything half size. So I caught it before we built anything, and we made everything up. He had the corridors, which were 10 feet wide. They were only like 7 feet wide, and the drawings that he thought were the originals, and we fixed it. We fixed it. It was fine. And the Okudas absolutely loved, being able to go back and build a set from the original series. You do all the gumdrop graphics.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you won an Art Directors Guild Award for Production Design Excellence in '96. Was that quite gratifying?
Well, that was like the first time I'd won an award for anything, and it was it was a surprise to me. It surprised me. It was the very first time that the art directors actually gave that award, and it was in a little teeny. It wasn't even a ballroom, a little teeny room in the Beverly Garland Hotel, I think, in Sherman Oaks. Burbank, excuse me, in Burbank. And it was a surprise. Surprise.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned Randy McLevin, but Mickey Michaels, set director. Do you remember Mickey at all?
Set decorator, yeah.
Because again, you obviously work quite closely together, wouldn't you, with him and Randall?
I don't understand the question.
I just wonder sort of how closely you're working together and how much what they're doing is influencing you and vice versa. How is it kind of the dynamic between?
I think one of the reasons I have had such a long run is that I have always been able to honor the other artists' work. I don't consider myself somebody's boss. I consider that we're colleagues, and we have a set of problems to solve, and we solve them together. Sometimes more my decision, sometimes more a set decorator's a decision, or a sketch artist's decision, or an assistant art director's decision. It's a way to get through life and make more friends than enemies. Mickey Michael's a good set decorator. I for the longest time used John Dwyer, uh, uh, my good friend, and I think that he's better
Yeah.
set decorator than many of the others that I've worked with.
And you then of course did well. Star Trek Nemesis was the last film. Did you going in, was there a sense that this was the end of the theatrical films?
Well, it wasn't the end of the theatrical films in my mind, but we did go a different direction with that film to begin with, because the director Stewart,
Oh, Stuart Baird.
yeah, he was such a lovely man in pre-production, and he became such a difficult person to work with when the camera started rolling. I don't believe anybody on the cast liked him, and that's a terrible thing uh, to say about a director, and I'm sorry I have to say it, but it's true. Uh, uh, I never did end up disliking him, but I did dislike his treatment of cast and crew. He somehow turned into
Dr. Jekyll sort of thing.
he turned into
Mr. Hyde, rather.
Jekyll and Hyde kind
Yeah.
of a kind of relationship with him. The picture's not bad. The picture's good. We did a lot of good artwork. I thought we answered all the difficult problems. I got inspiration from an Italian designer that I revere, and I was proud of all the sets and the artwork. The people that we were able to put together for the art department were excellent. It's just that Stuart Baird rubbed everybody the wrong way, I guess is the way to say it. Could never satisfy him, and yet the picture's okay. I don't know what he was so bloody worried about.
I don't know whether he, because he doesn't have a science fiction background, so whether he felt uncomfortable, he went out of his comfort zone. Maybe that was kind of projecting in this
I'm sure
house.
there's good reasons for anybody's behavior after the fact.
I mean, not to excuse it, of course,
Well,
but
I'm
just
just glad that picture was over. If you want
yeah,
to,
yeah.
everybody I talked to about it, were also glad it was over.
Oh, that's a shame.
And it's terrible because I think it's some of the best artwork we did in all the pictures that I had anything to do with. It's just one personality can sour you on an experience.
I think you're right. There's lots of 1 million, particularly the weapon that comes out and all the. It's very intricate, those designs. They're very good.
No, that was all very creative, and I owe that to the art department that we put together. They were way smarter than I was on computer design, and all that was designed on a laptop and shown to me and shown to the producers, and we went with it. We actually built it in feet and inches because we had to in order for actors to relate to it. And you know, it was a tour de force to realize you were going to kill Data in the end of the picture, and yet there's a hope that the android that they find quite by accident may still hold Data's soul.
Have you watched the films and the series that that came after?
I watched the first couple of J.J. Abrams pictures. I guess I'm an old warhorse. I put to pasture. I do not find a Mission Impossible format for Star Trek to be the Star Trek I know and love. But there's a new audience, a new set of writers and ideas, and those things are going apace.
I think the newer Star Trek comes a bit more Star Wars like some of those the films. I think
Again,
a little bit.
I don't follow it now.
What was Enterprise a nice show to work on? I know it didn't really come together in the same way that
an opportunity to go back to the future and show what we could have done prior to the original series if we'd had the knowledge and the technology that we had, you know, by 2000. We did that from 2000 to 2005. That's a long run in a way, and I think it's some of the best TV work, at least, that I did. I thought the engine room was a throwback to the original Star Trek: The Motion Picture, which had a horizontal warp core. I thought that was fun, and of course John Eves incredible drawings for the bridge graphics, the bridge ideas of having sliding chairs go from one station to another station closer to the captain and then back. Gives the actors so much more to do with buttons and levers, in addition to the video, you know, playback illustrations that we had at our fingertips. It was a lot of fun because we were able to imagine a more primitive and yet more technologically advanced series than was even imagined in the 1970s.
I think it's an interesting balance because, of course, the original Enterprise in the 60s was very much a product of more sort of cheap science fiction, and so it didn't quite have the polish look that you'd have later. But of course, Enterprise was
they had the talent, they didn't have the money.
Yeah,
and you know, eventually the videography got so much better than 35 millimeter film, and of course the internet, everything that has happened since 2007 even has gone head and shoulders over anything we could have done.
Because when you did A Mirror Darkly, the two-parter, you had to recreate the original Enterprise, but of course, still make it look like it existed. So it had to be a bit more technically advanced, better produced than the original show, but it still had to look like the original show. So was there a fine line between what you kind of update and what you had to make look like it was? If
No, I think we realized it was Back to the Future, but with the the technical expertise that we had acquired in all those years since. No, that was, I think it's believable because of that. I'm sorry it didn't go the 7 years. I think it would have been better to have finished those. I'm not quite sure what happened. Every year, whoever the string pullers at the top were, they didn't like Archer's character played the way Scott played it, and they wanted to get rid of Scott. From the very first season, every season they asked Rick to get rid of Scott, and Rick would find a way to soothe them and tell them, no, we want to continue, because there was nothing wrong with Scott. He was an excellent choice as a captain, but some people in high places get an idea that they cannot let somebody else win over. And so eventually they just canceled the show. And,
yeah,
that was too bad. Too bad for that franchise, too bad for all the people that have worked on it, and too bad for the audience.
So everyone was quite shocked, but although there seemed to be signs that the show was in trouble probably for a while, it sounds like.
I don't know. I don't think in syndication that show was doing any worse or better than any of the others. I'm not a financial guy, so I don't know.
I think there was a bit of maybe franchise fatigue at that time, because of course you had DS9 and Voyager being done simultaneously, lots of movies coming out. So whether
No, that didn't matter.
no,
Really. 2 more years might have cost them whatever millions it would have cost them, but as a set of episodes that were on a shelf that all you needed to do is hand out to another 400 stations around the country for even $50 an episode. They would have still made a lot of money. So I don't know. Not my decision.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was a sad end to the Rick Berman produced, as a Star Trek run. I think Enterprise was a really good show, but you're right, behind the scenes, you get the wrong people and making the decisions. And
well, you can see there's a thread through all of this dialogue you've had with me, that you have more than the artistic decisions to make, and they are often made by others beyond your control. And the best you can do is to smile, accept the problems, and solve them the best way you can.
I think we can all relate to that. Whatever work we are in, there's always the same things going on. I think. So of course you originally committed for 7 seasons, cancelled after 4. Do you then decide to take early retirement? You thought, well, this is a good chance to kind of walk away.
It was my opportunity to walk away, and I was ready to enjoy life without Star Trek. Yeah.
So although you would have liked to do 7 series, in a way it probably worked out quite nicely for you.
I had planned to, but
yeah,
I was already 70 years old in 2005, so I was far enough along that It was not an imposition in any way to stand aside and let the new producers and writers and artists deal with it.
And just to wrap up now, do you have a favorite episode that you did on DS9 or something that you're particularly proud of? Or is it just a delight across the
No,
board?
my favorite picture is First Contact, but I like them all. They all had different goods and bads. Getting there is all the fun.
Oh yes, indeed, yeah. With DS9, did you design much of the space station in terms of the being on two levels and be able to do that sort of thing on DS9?
Well, yes, I mean, the DS9 was a blank sheet of paper, but with Star Trek: The Next Generation, I had to tiptoe around things that had been established in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and you know, four other Star Trek features, and I inherited pieces of scenery that I then had to modify, but I couldn't just throw them out. I had to work with them and make it believable as a progression from one to the other. And I think I really don't know where I'm going with this. What was the original question?
Well, the question was, what was your what we were saying about your biggest contribution? And I suppose you're saying with DS9 being a blank sheet of paper, you could
Oh
then
yeah, so I had to invent everything. We had to come up with some kind of rules for what the Cardassians like, because it was a Cardassian space station built by slave labor from Bajoran colony in the planet below. We had to figure out what sort of Bible we would create. We just went for. I like Mercedes emblems that has a three-pointed cross. So we designed a space station with basically, if you look down on it, it looks like a Mercedes emblem. It's the Cardassians like things in sets of three. They're a militaristic society, so they like things that are partly technical and partly mechanical. They wear their skins on the outside. They have exoskeletons, so that their spaceship looks a little like their exoskeleton. We have three arms that the docking arms. So you keep going in sets of threes. You look at the CBS eye and you turn it vertical, and it becomes the windows of Deep Space Nine.
So you're able to put a lot of in-jokes in like that, just little things that you and your team would get, but as an audience,
We use them as a guide for how we saw things, and it worked.
And are you also studying a lot of different cultures and to sort of get, well, this could be a Japanese influence, or this is an Indian, or do you kind of
All things come from human experience, don't they? They don't come from a wild imagination. Your wild imagination is always somehow connected to your own reality. I'm a part of all that I have met. Everything you read, everything you see, everything you imagine has some roots in a perceived reality, even if it isn't a real, in some philosophical sense.
Yes,
I
we all
don't
share.
know.
Yeah, we all share this collective consciousness, don't we? Really, so that comes on the screen. Did the DS9 cast gel as well as the TNG one? Were they sort of were they like Enterprise? Were the cast members very a good
Oh,
unit?
they were all a family to each other. We had wonderful end of the season parties, and we even once had uh, Golden Globes award ceremony that we gave where we gave Ferengi ears as awards. Hmm. I'm sure that's documented somewhere else.
Yeah. So it goes without saying.
They were a good cast. They
Yeah.
were good
Yeah.
mix.
Yeah.
Avery Brooks was a good choice.
Hmm.
They had their own brand of fun.
Yeah. So you would probably say that Star Trek was the best job you ever had, and it's if you're going to recommend to people get on Star Trek, it sounds like it was a good sort of show to be on.
Okay.
Also, I was just going to say that so, of all the projects you've done in your career, nothing quite beats Star Trek in terms of the crew, the cast, the feeling. That's your favorite.
18 years of doing Star Trek with all those wonderful actors and all the crew of all these pictures, and the whole experience is a lifetime of work, and I don't think it. I think it's the old saying: if you like what you do, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's pretty much been my life.
Oh, that's wonderful, and of course it's a lovely legacy, isn't it, to have to because Star Trek's always going to be there, so you're cemented in history in a way, um, which is I suppose quite a nice thought really. But so, well, I think it's probably a lovely place to end it, Herman. Thank you very much for talking about Star Trek. It's been lovely to.
It's been fun.
Oh, good, lovely. Well, take care, and it's been really lovely to talk to you.
Okay,
Okay,
we'll talk again.
I was happy to. Okay,
Bye bye.
take care. Have a nice week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.